here to talk to you a little bit about the Cisco and Apple partnership. And this is something that's been going on for about 2 to 3 years, and it's and I'm going to go into a level of detail about some of the engineering changes that we've made jointly as our teams have worked together. Okay, so it's an interesting partnership. Apple is quite an interesting company to work with, but we've actually made quite a lot of strides in recent years. So I suppose to begin with, we're here at a conference which is really focused around mobile, and it makes sense really because companies today are really mobilizing their business. It used to be the case that people would go to work, okay, but it's a bit of a cliche now to talk about it, but essentially, work is something you do, not a place you go to. Okay, and that is ever more true because of the enablement of mobile in the business. If you look at the way that most businesses are adopting mobile technology, it isn't something that happens in a single step. It's something that happens over a period of time, and something which is gradual, I suppose, in its nature. So if we take here on the left-hand side, typically that's what people do initially, okay? So they enable working with calendar, with mail, with contacts, right? So that you can be out and about and you can get access to all of that. But then the other extreme is where people are not just mobile, connecting mobiles into their business, but they're actually thinking about how they do business, and they're thinking about the transformation that perhaps mobile can bring into their business. So it's a separate journey altogether. Okay, how could you actually do things differently, more efficiently? How could you derive more opportunity? And a lot of what Owen spoke about is the sort of thing that people are doing now in an everyday sense. So it's not uncommon now to go into hospital and see a nurse or a doctor with an iPad, okay, standing beside your bedside. And that makes sense, because having to travel back and forth between the nurse's station, just to input data or to gather data is all the time losing time. And so there's a real benefit there. Or indeed walking around a supermarket today. Okay, so if you go into a supermarket, isn't it so much powerful if there is somebody there, be it a supermarket or a fashion store or whatever it is, and they can address your query without having to bring you off to something on the side and say, okay, actually we don't have it in your size right now, but actually I can look up here and I can tell you exactly what we do. But it's beyond that. Like, you can think of a field worker, okay, somebody who has to actually do remote maintenance in somewhere which is really difficult to get to. So again, not having to go back to base to input or retrieve information is really something that will transform their business. So we get all these sort of benefits when we mobile the business. We get improved response times, we can actually reduce the costs, we get greater insight into the data that we have. And as Owen has already referred to, we do have better collaboration. But all of this can only work if we have a tight integration between the business and IT. And in order to enable that tight integration, we also have to have a tight integration between the applications, the devices that they're running on, and the network that they're running on as well. And the whole lot has to be enabled and wrapped around by security. And, why security? Well, I don't think I really need to even answer that question anymore, because anytime you do a survey of IT people, or you pick up a newspaper, you go to a Twitter field, you're listening and hearing about all sorts of security issues that are there. So this partnership that we have with Apple, as I say, it's going about 3 years, and really it was a marriage made in heaven, because there is a lot of synergy between the two companies. We do share a lot of the same values. The mobile platform that Apple has is something which is really innovative. And we actually at Cisco have been leading the innovations within Wi-Fi for really as long as Wi-Fi has been there. So the partnership has really centered around these three areas: security, networking, and collaboration. And given I've already mentioned security, let's actually start there, okay? Because undoubtedly it is the most important one. It's such a big area. It's an area that people are speaking about on a regular basis. It's an area where you need to be compliant and you need to prove to regulators that you are compliant. When you reflect and see that, the amount of attacks that are out there on an everyday basis, let me just give you a sense of this, okay? We have a security organization within Cisco called Talos. And Talos has about 250 really highly skilled security people. They see about 600 billion emails every single month. 600 billion. 86% of that traffic is spam. 8% of that is malware. And they stop about 19.6 billion threats every single day. So that's the extent of the security challenge that you have. So when you go mobile, you don't want to open yourself out to this sort of thing. So there's three things that we're working on specifically with Apple. And recognizing that you do have security incidents, one of the things that we want to be able to do is to actually, if you have an IT incident, you want to be able to look at the data, look at the audit data from everything from the apps through the device to the network. And we can now enable that, okay, because of this tight integration. So we can stream the audit data from the apps through the phone, through this new app called Cisco Security Connector, into Advanced Malware Protection, or AMP for Cisco. And so that allows an IT department really get a full picture of everything that's actually happened there. So that's a huge advance in being able to detect the sort of risk that your company might be exposed to. The other thing is control. And I mentioned, the amount of emails that Talos see. Thankfully, I don't see anything like that amount of emails. But I do get an awful lot of email traffic, and I'm sure you do as well. Just because I'm here today, and I'm perhaps not as attentive to my email, I know that when I open it up tomorrow, I'll have another 100 emails. Right, typically, I'm getting about 100 a day. Now, when you do get back to it and you do start looking at that email, right, it's very easy as you scan through something to click on a link which you really shouldn't have clicked on, or open a document which, if you took a little bit more time, you really wouldn't have opened that document, right? We've all faced that sort of issue. But what we're doing here is we're enabling control so that if that does happen to you on your mobile phone, it actually will stop and prevent you from going and getting to that malicious connection. Because at the back end, we've tied this control into Cisco Umbrella. Okay, and Cisco Umbrella is a means by which we can filter content. So we can prevent that sort of thing happening, which is really good. Right now, Cisco actually do nasty things to their employees, right? Because they're conscious that this sort of thing happens all the time, right? So they train us. So occasionally the IT department will actually send out an email with a bad link in it, right? And they'll see if you click on it. And if you click on it, you get your hand smacked, right? So that's another way of doing it, right? But not everybody has that facility. I have to say I've been smacked twice, right? So, which is a terrible thing to own up to, but there you go. So we've seen the visibility control. The third thing is about privacy. Being mobile means that you can really work from anywhere. And again, a personal story. A couple of years ago, I was over in Boston, and I went to an internet cafe. Well, it was a regular cafe with Wi-Fi, and they're everywhere, right? So I went there and I bought something online at the time. And about an hour later, I get the phone call from the bank. And the bank is telling me, your card has just been compromised. And it turned out that somebody had actually scanned my traffic in that cafe, right? So this sort of thing actually prevents that, because what it's doing is encrypting the traffic that's going to the site, okay? And that's happening again by default. So Cisco Security Connector is the enablement app for all of this. Now, the only way it works really is if those devices are managed in the way that Owen was describing a little bit earlier. So they have to be managed devices in order for those three things to work with. So they're the three things: visibility, control, and privacy. That's security, but we've been working a little bit longer, in fact, right from the start, with Apple about networking. And again, we've done three things. All good things come in threes, right? The first one is, well, just to recognize, I suppose, that the level of growth in mobile traffic is phenomenal. We do a report every couple of years called the Network Visualization Index. And what that shows year after year is the incremental growth in mobile traffic, which is good. But that does bring with it a range of problems. And one is that if you're actually using critical apps, you want to make sure that they're secure. Absolutely, we've covered that. But you also want to make sure that they're prioritized within your network. Okay, that's absolutely true. And you want to be able to use analytics with them. So the first thing really, and this is something that's in the background, so if you have Apple and Cisco together, this happens by default. And it's enabled by a handshake, so there's nothing here to configure, okay? So when an Apple device sees a Cisco access point, the two come together and they say, oh, hey, I know you, right? So they do a little handshake, they recognize one another, and then these things start to happen. So the first one is that as you move around your building, it enables fast roaming. So that's actually a standards-based. So it's 802.11-or, right, for the geeks amongst you, right? But essentially, what that variation on the 802.11 standard does is make secure connections directly to the access point from the mobile phone much faster. Okay, so that's something that's happening there in the background. The second thing that'll happen is that there's another standard, 802.11k. And what that does is it actually gives the mobile device a list of all the available access points that are optimum to be used. Okay, again, a very clever thing. And you say, well, why am I bothered about that? Well, the reason you might be bothered about it is because typically what a mobile phone does is it'll be scanning the 2.5 and the 5 gigahertz range, right? And doing all of that actually wears down the battery, okay? Because I don't know if you find that. You switch off Wi-Fi and you find your battery will last much longer. But you don't want that, right? Because you want people to see the benefits and work with your business apps, and you want people to be able to work over Wi-Fi in the business. So you don't want to switch it off, but you don't want the deterioration in your battery power either. So that's actually going to happen pretty much as well. The third one is that there's a closer refinement to that, and that's 802.11. There's an exam on this afterwards, right? 802.11v. Okay, and what V does is it says, okay, I know that my buddy over there told you about all those access points you can have, and he narrowed the list for you. I'm just going to give you one. Okay, I'm going to give you the best one that'll suit you. And not only that, I'm going to proxy traffic for you. I'm going to switch from multicast to unicast. I'm going to let you sleep I could do a bit of that myself, right? I'm going to let you sleep more. And essentially what that'll mean is, again, improvement in battery life, right? So key thing there. So all these innovations are only operable between Apple and Cisco devices when they happen. We love to do tests, okay, to prove the merits of this. And one of the things, we have a head office in the UK in a place called Bedfont Lakes, which is over in London, in West London, near Heathrow. And we got a guy, and we set up all the access points in this very large building, and we set them up without the software that supported these type of innovations that I'm talking about. And what happened, and we sent somebody running around the building and see what the actual connectivity is like. And then we enabled it with the up-to-date software. And that's the sort of improvements that we saw. It was absolutely incredible, right? That the level of improvement that we saw working together between Apple and Cisco was absolutely remarkable. Overall, I think it was about 84%. The second thing, so that was Wi-Fi optimization, rather long explanation about that. But the second one is really about prioritizing apps within the network. So we mentioned mobile traffic is busy, but also, networks in general are busy. And we don't tend to limit what people do on the network so much. But we want to be able to prioritize the business apps. We want to be able to prioritize voice if they're using it over Wi-Fi. So we don't want any of those choppy things. So enabling that, we do that by using quality of service all the way from the application right through to the network. So IT can actually identify the specific apps that they want to prioritize on your mobile phone. Okay, so again, that's something which is specific. That's now extended to Mac OS as well. And lastly, as well, just recognizing the fact that Wi-Fi networks are quite dynamic. Okay, the people are moving around, that the apps they are using are being enabled and disabled. The traffic is changing all the time. What we are able to do is to actually provide crowdsource, if you like, telemetry from the phones, right, to actually provide IT with a sense of really what's happening in that dynamic environment. And the benefit of that is that they're able to fine-tune the environment to respond to that. So that's the networking innovations. So you now heard 3 security innovations. Now you've had 3 networking innovations. And in a way, that's all well and good. But you sort of expect that stuff to be there, to happen. And if you, the user, whose only interface is really the mobile phone, you're thinking, well, yeah, that's great. It's definitely going to improve my experience. But what else? And the what else is really about collaboration. Okay, what else can we specifically do between Apple and Cisco on an Apple device? And people want the same level of experience. And when I said at the outset, that the values that Apple have are quite similar to the values that Cisco have, really what I'm referring to is the fact that we are both honed in on what the experience of the user is. Okay, that is the absolute key for us. So we want this. We don't want a different sort of experience when you have somebody who is on Wi-Fi distinct to being on cellular. Okay, we want to have the same experience. So again, Owen referenced this in this talk already. So whether you're on Wi-Fi or cellular, you can now use Siri. You can now answer and take calls from a lock phone. You can collaborate through what we now call WebEx Teams. No more Spark. Okay, so for those of you who may not know Spark, you don't need to. It's now called WebEx Teams. All right, but there's a whole load of innovations associated with that. But all of this is really trying to drive a similar experience, a similar high-quality experience, irrespective of whether you're on a Wi-Fi or cellular. So let me give you an absolute example of that. In the past, this is what you had to do. Okay, in order to actually make a call, okay, over Wi-Fi, this is what you had to do. You had to tap on the notification. You had to open that notification and go down to Show All Notes. Then you had to find the URL. You had to tap that URL to launch the app. And then you had to validate that this was your meeting, and then you joined the meeting. All of which you can do, it's fine, but it's not a great experience. So this is a better one. Now, up pops your reminder. Tap on the reminder. You've got an option to join the meeting. Just join the meeting. You're in. Sorry, there you go. That went too quick. Join the meeting, you're in. There you go. So it's a much easier experience, and one that people will undoubtedly prefer. You can also now screen, you can share your screen from iOS. Okay, that's another innovation that has been brought. We can also enable the use of WebEx Teams or WebEx meetings from macOS through the Safari app. So they're the benefits of collaboration. So we've been through security, we've been through networking, and we're finally through collaboration. We continue to do innovations with Apple. We'll continue to do that over time, and more as we develop, as we innovate, we'll innovate together with them. So hopefully over time the collaboration will deliver an even richer experience for you, the mobile user. Thank you very much.